Thank you everybody for joining the Lunch and Learn today for the Town of Chapel Hill Wellness at Work program. My name is Asia Trotter Walden, and I'm happy to be presenting today as the dietitian for the program. Today, we're going to talk about something that's kind of basic in terms of nutrition, but hopefully will be a good reminder and some pointers for going forward in the new year. The title of my presentation is Optimizing Your Health. So it's Healthy Eating 101. So really pretty basic for common medical conditions. And like I said, I am Asia Walden. Um, and these are my credentials. So we are going to start out with the basic, my plate planner. And as you can see, this is a pretty Pinterest perfect kind of picture of a breakfast. Most people's breakfast doesn't look exactly like that. But what we want to start with is balancing the plate. So that's what we're going to discuss in the next couple of slides here. So we're going to start out with the first section of the plate, and that's our carbohydrates. And I like to call these foods that create easy energy. So many of us grew up with a lot of diet culture information being thrown at us. Don't eat carbs, don't eat fat, eat a lot of protein, don't eat too much salt. Um, and, today eggs are okay, tomorrow they're not. And people are all confused about, what they're supposed to eat and what they're not supposed to eat. But carbohydrates are a macronutrient. This is something that your body absolutely needs to function. And these are the foods that easily your body is able to break down and turn into energy. So, this is going to be on the next couple of sides, but foods that fall into that category would be your milk products. And that's because milk does have natural sugar in it, which is lactose. So the milk itself, ice cream, yogurt, cottage cheese, regular cheese, a serving of a milk product would be the equivalent of like an 8-ounce glass or a half a cup of, yogurt or cheese or other dairy products. The second thing that falls into the carbohydrate category is your fruit and fruit juices. And this is another one that I oftentimes will get a lot of questions about because people will say, well, I thought I wasn't supposed to be eating fruit because it has sugar in it. Yes, it has sugar in it, just like milk, but it's natural sugar. And it does give you lots of nutrients by eating the fruit. So I typically will say it is better to eat your fruit than to drink the juice. Because at least if you're eating the fruit, specifically if you're eating fruit where you eat the skin, you're going to get some type of fiber, which is going to help with blood sugar regulation and weight loss, which we'll talk about on another slide. And so when I encourage people to eat fruit, I encourage them to try to go for fruits that you don't have to peel. And, reason being is because by eating that skin, you get nutritional value. So in terms of getting like the best bang for your buck, an apple with the skin on is better than, eating a banana or eating pineapple or watermelon or something where you have to take the outside portions off because they're literally not edible. Does that mean that you can't eat fruit that you have to peel? It does not. So if you're eating fruit that you have to peel, the serving size that you would eat is about a half a cup, which is a serving of fruit, or a piece of fruit the size of a tennis ball if you're not going to cut it up. That would be the serving that you would eat. And then we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you would pair that fruit with some type of protein in order to help stabilize your blood sugar and help with not being hungry shortly after you finish eating it. So, still talking about carbohydrates. So, our cereals and grains are the next things that fall under that category. And this is probably another one that everybody's like, a little bit on the fence about, should I be eating bread? What's the best type of bread to eat? I'm not supposed to eat rice. I'm not supposed to eat pasta. These are things that you absolutely can eat. I mean, there are tons and tons of grains. I think most people know, bread, pasta, and rice, and maybe corn as like primary grains that you would use, and they're pretty inexpensive. But things like oats, grits, which is made out of corn, wheat, so you could do like pearled barley, rye, quinoa, couscous. Excuse me, all of those things are considered grains. And again, going back to that comment about like high fiber, we do recommend trying to do whole grains whenever possible. Does that mean that you can't eat the white versions of things? No, it does not. So I oftentimes will tell people specifically when I'm talking to people who are dealing with diabetes, we would prefer that you eat brown rice, yes. But if you try brown rice and you don't like it and you want to eat white rice, that's fine because it's all about combining those foods with other foods to get the best bang for your buck and not raise your blood sugar. And then the last thing that falls into the category of carbohydrates would be your starchy vegetables. So there is a difference between starchy and non-starchy vegetables. So starchy vegetables would be things like corn, any types of beans. So, black beans, pinto beans, kidney beans, the little small green peas that many of us were forced to eat as a child, any type of potato, and then like your fall and winter squashes are also considered starchy vegetables. Um, so they are vegetables, but you would count them as carbohydrates because they easily turn into sugar. And then I kind of put this little side note in there that a sweet potato does have more fiber in it than a white potato, but both the sweet potato and a white potato are carbohydrates. So in terms of like portion size and what you should eat, it doesn't matter because it's the same portion whether you eat a sweet potato or a white potato. You're going to get more nutrition in terms of fiber by eating the sweet potato, but the portion size is still exactly the same. So now we're going to shift to the other portions of the plate. So we talked about the carbohydrates, which I said like yes, they easily turn into sugar, but that's what our body uses for energy. So the other two foods are protein and fiber. So these are foods that provide energy, they help with building muscle, and they promote weight loss, which everybody wants. So we'll talk a little bit about more of these in more detail. So what is the role of protein? It is important. This is another macronutrient. It is important at every stage of your life. It becomes more important to get this protein in as you get older because your body will naturally start to lose muscle. And by eating the protein and exercising those muscles, you can keep that from happening. So, primary sources of protein, if you eat meat, are going to be meat. So, beef, chicken, pork, lamb, turkey, fish, any types of seafood, um, eggs, cheese, beans, nuts, and nut butters. And then there's some other like vegetarian sources of protein. So if you like things like tofu, even some of your dark leafy greens in terms of vegetables do have small amounts of protein in them. So like I said, protein is important to help us maintain lean muscle mass. It does take your body a little bit longer to break down protein and turn it into sugar, versus if you were just eating carbohydrates. So when you're talking about like eating things in combination, this is why we say pair carbs with protein because it helps you stay full for longer because your body actually has to do more work to turn that into sugar than it has to do with a carbohydrate. So they do digest slower. So if you have diabetes, you're not going to get as high of a blood sugar spike if you have some protein with your carbohydrates. So this whole pairing of foods is very important. Always pair your carbohydrates with protein foods. And then I gave an example there of eating an apple with peanut butter, assuming you're not allergic to nuts. You can also use other sources of protein if you are allergic to nuts. So let's talk a little bit about fiber. So fiber is another one of these things. It's not a macronutrient, but it does help with keeping you regular in terms of, what's going in, coming out when it's supposed to. Fiber does act in the meal like glue. So, like I said, the body's main purpose for taking in food is to whatever you eat, turn it into glucose, which is sugar. That's what your body uses for energy. So you can open your eyes, so you can walk, so you can talk, all of that stuff. So, what fiber does is it traps a lot of that sugar that your body actually is not utilizing. And then when you go to the bathroom, it comes out. So it helps with keeping your blood vessels clear of additional oil and things like that that might increase your cholesterol and increase your blood pressure. So it's important to get a good amount of fiber when you eat. Now, for most people, it is recommended to try to get like 20 to 30 grams of fiber per day. And ways that you get fiber naturally without having to take Metamucil every day is by eating the skin of fruits, eating non-starchy vegetables, eating whole grains, eating nuts, and eating seeds. So if you're including some of these things in your diet, it doesn't have to be in every single meal that you have, but if you're including things like this in your diet on a day-to-day basis, then you should need additional fiber. You should be pretty regular. And you will actually stay full for a little bit longer. Um, so if you're not really a fan of those foods, because let's just face it, not everybody is, um, we would just recommend that you try to look for foods that have on the label at least 5 grams of fiber in whatever the serving size is. So that would mean, looking down under the carbohydrate portion of the label, and it'll say like dietary fiber, foods that have more than 5 grams of fiber. That's what you would want to take in if you're not going to take in the whole forms of the foods. Um, Another thing you could do is to consider a multivitamin that has extra fiber. Um, there's also some pre-made shakes out there, specifically like vegetarian ones, not ones that are dairy based, that do have at least 5 to 10 grams of fiber in them. So there's different ways that you can get it in. If you're looking at this picture and you're like, yeah, I don't eat any of those foods, you can get it from some things that do have labels on it. All right. So another way of looking at this plate, still same thing. You want to have some protein, which would be your steak. You want to have some type of fiber, which would be the vegetables that are all the way in the back there. And then you want to have some carbohydrates. So those crispy onions, while onions are a vegetable because they have a little crisp to them, that's kind of your carbohydrate in this particular situation. So this would be like a sample lunch or dinner plate. So where do snacks rather fit into your diet? So snacks fit into your diet. Um, it really depends on how hungry you are. So I think a lot of us again grew up and we were told you have to have two snacks and you have to have 3 meals every day. And so everybody's like, trying to eat like every 3 to 4 hours so they can get these 3 meals and these two snacks in. And some of us are overeating because we're trying to follow this kind of old advice. Um, you know, you may or may not need a snack during the day, depending on the stage of life that you're in and how much energy you're actually exerting. So a lot of times you really have to like check in with your body. As we get older, a lot of times we may only need like 2 meals a day or just the 3 meals a day, and we don't need the snacks. But if you're like getting up super early in the morning, like I do at 5 a.m., and you don't go to sleep until 9 o'clock because you have small children, you're kind of running a really long time and you probably do need those extra, bursts of energy that snacks would provide. So utilizing snacks to curb your appetite, not to make you full, because we do know that we're going to have meals. Add snacks in between meal times. So if it's been 4 hours, 5 hours, and you haven't eaten anything and you can't really get to a meal right now because maybe you're in a meeting or you're going to the gym or you have to go pick somebody up or something, that would be like an ideal time to insert a snack. Um, Also, if you have an early dinner, but you end up staying up late, like if you eat dinner at 5 o'clock and you're up until midnight, chances are you're going to get hungry somewhere between 5 o'clock and midnight. That's natural. That happens. So that's where you would insert a snack. Um, and some people, depending on their health issues, um, they may graze more than they have meals. So they may have like small amounts of food throughout the day. So they're actually eating like 6 times a day, realistically. Um, and so they may end up eating snacks more so than meals. Um, if you need to increase the portion size of your snacks, you can increase the portion size of your snacks, but the idea is still the same to make sure that there is balance. There's always carbs, there's always protein. So you'll see like that parfait up there. There's yogurt for protein, there's a little bit of carbs with the granola and the fruit. In the case of the chips and salsa, there's not very much protein there, but those chips do provide some carbohydrate. And that salsa, because it's fresh, it has lots of fiber in it because there's, peppers and onions and tomatoes and all those things in there. So there's something there to kind of keep you full versus just eating the chips by themselves. Um, so whether or not you need snacks, basically base it on your schedule, but you really don't want to allow yourself during your waking hours to go more than 4 or 5 hours without putting something into your system for energy. So make sure you're paying attention to your hunger cues. And then additional tips around like just eating healthier. So whatever schedule you're following, whether you follow the old adage of 3 meals and 2 snacks, whether you eat 3 meals only, whether you eat 5 small meals a day, whatever you're doing, be consistent. That's like the biggest mistake that I see a lot of people making, especially when it comes to needing to get pounds off, is that their eating is not consistent. It's like, you know, maybe I skipped breakfast today, maybe I had breakfast and then I went like 8 hours before I had something else to eat. And you can't really lose weight like that, and your body gets a little bit confused. So, if you try to like base it on, has it been 4 or 5 hours? Do I need to have some energy of some sort? That helps. In terms of balancing out the plate. Everybody always laughs at me when I say this, but you want to eat primarily plant-based. So I just say eat 80% things that grow, 20% things that walk or swim. So, does that mean you have to eat completely vegetarian? No. But you want to limit your intake of animal products because that's where you get things like unhealthy fats and, added cholesterol that your body is not naturally producing. You do want to make sure that your meals have carbohydrates, protein, and then that fiber from the fruits and vegetables. And you want to make sure when you have a snack that you do have a combination of carbohydrates and protein. Specifically, if your goal is to lose weight, it is recommended that you kind of eat in a counterclockwise direction. If you have one of those plates that has the little separators in it, so you would eat your protein first, and then you would eat your vegetable or your fruit, whatever colorful food is on on your plate. And then the last thing you would eat would be your carbohydrate. So your rice or your pasta or your potato. And that just gives you an opportunity to get the foods in that are going to give you the most nutrition. Not that, potatoes or rice doesn't give you nutrition, but remember when we talked about protein, that it helps with lean muscle mass, it helps with staying full, it helps with staying lean. And then we talked about the fiber and being regular and staying full. So those are the things that you really want to focus on getting into your system before you actually get full. And then if you only eat a small portion of the carbohydrate, that's okay. At least you got a little bit of it in. And then in terms of your drinks, we should be drinking primarily water or low calorie drinks. I recognize that water can be boring sometimes. So, I do understand that if you're not drinking 100% water all day long, but you should be getting most of your fluids from water. So I'm going to talk a little bit about supplements and medications. So I always ask people when I have consults with them whether or not they take multivitamins. And a lot of people are like, well, I don't take that because I don't know that it really does anything. So, multivitamins are important, especially as we get older. The reality with our food system, the way that it is, the soil that is being used for farming, it is depleted of nutrients. So, even if you're eating like everything raw out of the ground, like growing it yourself, it doesn't have the same nutritional value that it had 50 years ago because of, just natural progression of things. So it's really not possible to get every single thing you need from food. So we do recommend having, multivitamins. We do recommend formulations that are age appropriate because as you get older, you do need more vitamin D, you do need more calcium, you may need more magnesium, and these things are designed to kind of account for, the fact that your system is absorbing less of these things as you age. The other thing that you want to remember is that you cannot out supplement a poor diet. So I talk to a lot of people who have a cabinet full of supplements and they're taking, 20 supplements every single day and they're not really eating. And they're like, yeah, I'm healthy. I take all the things. And it's like, well, you would be healthier if you would just like eat the whole food. So, the thing that you do want to do is try to get as much as you can from food. If you're like physically unable to eat because you're sick or something's going on with your system, that's understandable to be using supplements. But you want to try to eat as much as you can and supplement where you need to. And then the other thing with supplements is because they're not regulated, a lot of times you don't know that what you're paying for is what you're actually getting. And many of the things, excuse me, especially things like vitamin C that's water soluble, a lot of it is like coming out when you go to the bathroom. So you're paying like all this money for this supplement and you think you're getting all this nutrition and all of it's going into the toilet. So take that into consideration when you're, taking, 20 supplements a day and not eating. Try to eat as much as possible. And then your medications, if you are on prescribed medications, I know none of us like to take prescribed medications. I am on prescribed medications. I don't like to take them, but I have to take them because if I don't take them, my body is not going to function the way it's supposed to function. Um, so if you're diagnosed with things like high blood pressure, diabetes, or other health issues, um, it's not anything that you did. It's not your fault. It's not because you're not good enough and you can't eat well enough. Take your medications. They are important. In some cases, it is possible to reduce dosages or come off of things as your health improves. So work with your doctor to discontinue or change medications. If you start taking something new and there's a negative side effect, like your stomach is upset or your legs are always cramping, like when you go to the doctor, those are your opportunities to say, like, hey, you prescribed this 3 months ago and I noticed X, like, is this a side effect of that? Can we look at something else? Do I even really need this? Um, but don't just discontinue things because you could be putting your health at jeopardy by just discontinuing it on your own. And if weight loss is your primary focus, make sure that you are practicing these good eating habits that we talked about during this session before you consider starting medications that assist with weight loss. This is a big, big, big topic right now. The Wegovy's, the Ozempics, the trizepatides of the world. Everybody wants them. Everybody's prescribing them. Everybody's losing lots of weight. But I see a lot of people that are losing weight and they're, which is good because the pounds are coming off and that's all they're really concerned about, but they're actually malnourished because they're not eating properly. They're not getting any nutrition in the foods that they are eating because their body is not being allowed to eat the proper amounts of food because of those medications. So while the medications do work, before you start taking them, it is important that you know what a balanced diet looks like. And you're focusing on like getting that protein in and getting those vegetables in and, getting those fruits in and things like that so that you're properly nourished as you're losing the weight. And then, of course, the thing that many people struggle with, um, staying active. It's like I talk to a lot of people, and they find it difficult to have the best of both worlds. So there's the class of people that are like, I eat really healthy, but like I do not move. And then you have the people who are like, I exercise every single day, but don't talk to me about changing my diet. It does take a combination of both. I know we've been hearing that for eons, but the reality is it does take a combination of both, especially if you're talking about things like lowering blood sugar, lowering blood pressure, and losing weight. So, when I think of activity, I just think just move. It does not have to be planned per se, but like walking, dancing, swimming, riding, running, stretching, lifting, there's a ton of options. It doesn't have to look like going to the gym or going to a class or, whatever you think it looks like. It can look like whatever it looks like for you in your life. And I specifically chose this picture of like a parent with children because that's literally, my situation. I have a 7-year old and an 18-month-old at home, and I can make every excuse for why I'm not doing some form of planned activity. But there's YouTube videos, and I can put that on, and they can participate to whatever level they want to participate, and I can actually get my activity in. So there's definitely a way to do it, even if you have to include, your kids or your grandkids or your pets or whoever you have to include to get it done. And the recommendations are still that you try to get at least 150 minutes of light to moderate activity each week. 150 minutes is really not a lot. It's 2.5 hours over the course of 7 days. So you can break that up. You can do 5 times a week for 30 minutes, 3 times a week for 50 minutes. You can do 2 times per day, 15-minute spurts if that's all that you're able to do. So if you get like a 15-minute break at work, you could utilize that to go take a quick walk. You could park further away from the door when you park in the morning so that you have a little bit of a walk to get into the building and a little bit of a walk to get out of the building. You know, if you work in a building that, let's say the building has 10 floors and you work on the ninth floor, am I expecting you to take the stairs up to the ninth floor? No. Maybe you can work your way up to being able to do that, but you could get on the elevator and take the elevator up to the fifth floor and then walk up 4 flights of stairs or whatever makes sense for your level of fitness until you can build your way up to doing more. So there's all types of ways that you can increase activity. And so tying this all together, because I know that I said a lot, when you have meals and snacks, you want to make sure that they're balanced. You want to make sure there's carbohydrate. You want to make sure there's protein. You want to make sure there's fiber. If you need snacks, use them. If you don't need snacks, don't use them. Easy way to not overeat. Try to stick to as close to a meal schedule as possible, like having meals around the same time every day, drinking low calorie drinks, utilizing your supplements as needed and medications as prescribed, move whenever there's an opportunity to move, even if it's simple things. And then if you have like really chronic health issues or like things that require specific diets or specific nutrients need to be considered because of your health issues, somebody like me, a registered dietitian, is the best person to talk to. Do not get your health information from Instagram, please.
Thank you so much, Asia. If you can just share with people the best way to contact you to be able to meet with you one on one.
Mhm. Yeah, sure. Um, So my direct number is going to be 984-974-4250. And that is my number here at the Family Medicine Clinic where I'm recording from today. That goes straight to my voicemail, and I will be able to call you back and set up an appointment. And I do virtual and in person. At this point, I have about once a month that I'm actually at the Wellness at Work clinic. But we can figure out, what's the best time and way for me to meet with you if that's necessary.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And just to share with folks also that, feel free to just, call the clinic here and, let me know and I'll get the message to Asia. So lots of ways to be able to connect with her.
Yeah.
And we really thank you for doing this today. And I know that next month you'll be exploring. Um, how did you say it? What's I'm having a block now on meal planning.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Next month, the lunch and learn is scheduled at the library, and then I'm going to be doing the same one in April. But the idea was to dig more into meal planning, but specifically like meal planning on the run. Since we're talking about working with a lot of town employees and people who maybe work outside of the office and have to rely on like fast food or whatever they can pack. How do you make this kind of plate method that I discussed today work in that situation? Is there a way to make that work in this situation? And so I'll dig more into that, what the recommendations are there, so that you can, kind of have an idea of how best to navigate that. Because the reality is everybody, the days of having the ability to cook every single meal at home don't exist anymore, for many of us. So, knowing what to do when you're out is important.
yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very, very much for this time, and we will look forward to next month.
Okay. Do you have
Great.
anybody have any questions?
I do have a question.
Hmm.
I enjoy smoothies, but I know they have a lot of sugar in
Hmm.
addition to the fruit. So I'm just wondering how bad are smoothies and is it okay to have one occasionally or is that just something you should really never do?
So every smoothie is not created equal. So it depends on what you're talking about. Are you making these smoothies yourself, or are you buying them from a like a fast food place or somewhere?
So I'm more likely to buy them, but not really the fast food kind. So it's like maybe a step up from fast food. So like maybe a local place like the Purple Bowl or something like that.
Hmm. So when you're buying smoothies out, um, you don't really have control over what is going into them. And a lot of times, they're not using fresh fruit in those smoothies. They may be using like fruit concentrates and they're adding additional sweeteners. So that's what makes those unhealthy. So if you're gonna have a smoothie, your best bet is to try and make it yourself. And I know that sounds like a lot, but it actually is easier than what you might think. So there are like individual smoothie cups that you can buy to where you don't have to make like a whole blender full and waste it, but you can just make enough for like one smoothie. And actually, they're really simple ones that you can buy at most stores where you just put the ingredients into the little cylinder, turn it upside down and push down and it blends it, and then you flip it back over, you put the top on it and you drink right out of that, and it's enough for a single serving. And what I usually tell people is you've got a couple options. So you can buy like frozen fruit, so whatever frozen fruit blend that you prefer. And then all you have to do is like add some type of protein in a liquid, whether that protein is a powder or yogurt or peanut butter. And then, your liquid could be milk, it could be water, it could be some type of low sugar juice. And, those three things, you just put it in your blender and, in a matter of 5 or 6 minutes, it's done. Of course, there's the option too of like cutting up your own fruit. What I typically do is kind of a combination of both. So we keep fresh fruit in our house, having small children. Things like bananas tend to go bad very quickly. So when I start to see them starting to turn, I will cut them in half and put them in the freezer, and those bananas become a part of a smoothie at a later date. So when you have fresh, fruit that might be starting to go bad, you can freeze it before it goes bad so you don't waste it, and then use that fruit to make your smoothies.
Okay. Those are all good ideas. And I really appreciate your presentation because I feel like sometimes it seems like it's really complicated to get the
Mhm.
right nutrition, and you've made it really simple and straightforward. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you. It's actually simpler than most people make it. Like I said, I think a lot of us have just, diet culture kind of messed us all up in the head, and we think it's like super complicated and there's all these factors, and it's not as complicated as we've made it.
Yeah, I was thinking it might be interesting for a future lunch and learn to maybe talk about how to get good health information with all of the bad information that's online. I was listening to a podcast about the glucose goddess,
Mhm.
and I'm actually maybe even a little bit angry that people like that are out there, just with their, and a lot of people are listening to them and believing what they're saying. And I don't know if you know much about the glucose goddess,
Oh, I
but
do.
she's made a lot of proclamations with really no basis.
Yeah.
So she just kind of made this stuff up, and a lot of people are just buying into it. And it's pretty upsetting to know that, people are believing all of this, things that are just really made up and
Right.
not.
Not based in science.
Yeah, yeah, I was thinking it might be good to just talk about that maybe at a lunch and learn.
Yeah, I can write that down. That's a actually really good topic. It's funny that you bring up the goddess, because until about 6 months ago, I didn't really know who that was until I came here and started talking to one of my colleagues, and I was like, and I, just happened to look at something that she wrote on social media, and I was like, oh wow, and she has a lot of followers.
Yeah,
But she's not the only one out there that's like spreading this misinformation. So, um, yeah, that's a good topic. Credible sources of health information.
yeah, and how to look at something like that and figure out if it's just nonsense.
Yeah,
I think would be helpful for people.
thank you for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks. Good ideas. Yeah,
Any other question?
No, I think that's all for today.
yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Well,
Thank
thanks
you
for
again,
joining me.
Asia, and we will see you soon.
Okay. Have a
Bye.
good
Bye
day.
bye.
Bye.